Thank you all for joining us and welcome. Let's go take a quick look. This is part of Cybersecurity Awareness Month. The title of this panel is How I Became a Cyber Rockstar, and we'll be talking today from 4:30 to 5:30 as part of this wonderful set of resources from the University of Maryland Global Campus and the Center for Security. So this is part of Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and it's a collaborative effort between the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency and the National Cybersecurity Alliance. As you can see, we're trying to raise awareness about the importance of cybersecurity to ensure that all Americans have the resources they need to be safer and more secure online. And the University of Maryland Global Campus and the Center for Security Studies are proud to be champions in support of this essential online safety awareness and education initiative. The overarching theme for this year, 2020, is do your part, be cyber smart. And so now more than ever, the theme empowers people and organizations to own their own role in protecting their part of cyberspace, with a particular emphasis on the key message for 2020, which is if you connect it, protect it. So with that, this panel is here to talk about their journey and becoming part of the cybersecurity workforce in America. And so moderators will be myself and Dr. Palin. My name's Diane O'Grady-Cuniff. I'm with the Maryland Center for Computing Education at the University System of Maryland, and I work with the Maryland Computer Science Teachers Association. And Dr. Palin comes to us with a wealth of experience from University of Maryland Global Campus and is also the wonderful person who has put together this series for Cyber Education Month to raise awareness across Maryland. We'll be introducing Kimberly Menzel, who's a teacher at Frederick Community College and also the Frederick County Career and Technology High School, and two former students who are now cyber rock stars. And that would be Tony, and I'm going to mess your name up, Punturiero. I'll let you say it yourself, who's the community manager for offensive security, and Jordan Bennett, who is a graduate of UMGC and is now a cryptologic technician with the US Navy Reserve. So our topics are going to be how people got interested, what skills are needed, something interesting about your work, something challenging about your work, and some advice for others who'd like to follow in your path. And if you have any questions at all, please put them in the chat and we will make sure to fit them in where they fit into the presentation. So our panelists will each start out giving us a quick introduction of how they got interested in this field in the first place. So panelists, here we are. Kim, why don't you start us off?
All right, sounds like I'm going to start everybody off. All right, so cybersecurity wasn't really a very big field many years ago when I started off in technology. Actually, I ended up working first as a programmer before I got into education. So I started off programming web applications and whatnot and doing the behind the scenes work for ProTech Associates. And then at that point on, I decided I wanted to go into some teaching. And so I ended up getting a degree in teaching, a master's. And I ended up eventually teaching technology. And I started off teaching even elementary and middle school, and of course now high school. But in that journey as well, I also had the opportunity to take on a position as a network administrator. I also took on the position as an IT manager. And then when I came to Frederick County Public Schools, I ended up also working as the network administrator and working more with cybersecurity and taking on teaching that role as well. So I started off really kind of doing more networking and whatnot, and then transitioned naturally, I think, into cybersecurity, because you really definitely need, as a teacher and as an experienced professional, you definitely need your basis of networking in order to, I think, really completely understand cybersecurity and understand how the two are really married. So I'm going to let Tony and Jordan also continue their thoughts on that as well with their experiences. Tony, you're up.
Sure. I think for me, trying to get started in cybersecurity, that was one big thing I was very interested in, but I started with it actually really early. I started as a senior in high school actually taking a Security Plus course that was at a local high school I was at. The Career Development Tech Center is where I started taking it. And that's when I started getting more of a big passion to learn more about cyber, learn more about information security, and try to build my skills with this material that they taught, which is when I pursued more into college, actually learning more about the skills, the trades, getting the certifications as well. And also competing in CTFs for the Cyber Padawans was another big thing for me as well too, getting to where I am now. And I still have a passion to learning about all the different things in cyber, whether it's going to networking, whether it's into cryptographic attacks, ethical hacking, pen testing, or even on the incident side as well too. Those are some of the big things I still have a passion for now that I still love to learn.
So next, I think so. I think for myself personally, growing up, I always just like to tinker with things, whether it was computers or cars or about a million other things I was into. So coming into college, I knew I wanted to do something that I felt was important and I could sort of help to have an impact on something. So I'm going to throw out a cliche here, but something bigger than myself, so to speak. I didn't know what that was right away, but luckily I actually had an uncle who had been in the cyber field for a long time. And he talked me into being a computer science major. For a semester, he basically said, try it out. And I loved it and just took it from there. So I guess I really didn't know until then.
I have a question from one of the attendees that's kind of fundamental that maybe we should ask before we move further. They're asking, what's the difference between cyber and information technology?
Anybody want to take that one on?
So for me, at least from what I've noticed, actually a lot of times the difference isn't quite as clear as you would think. There's a lot of things that relate to each other. A lot of times when people say cyber, what they're really referring to is just general security side of things, prevention of attacks, like detection of attacks, things like that. But there's really a lot of things that intermingle there. Like a lot of positions that you would generally think of as information technology. You'd have like maybe just network administrator, database administrators. Really, I mean, everyone has security related concerns with that. That's some that you could maybe consider as part of the cyber field. And there's also other positions like, you'll have an actual, like a cybersecurity analyst position where you're actually watching network traffic or something like that. But it's not always as actually clear as you would think.
Yeah, I think when you look at between information technology and look at cybersecurity, information technology focuses on the fundamentals of IT and expands more into it when you're building out the systems, your servers, the network devices that are going to be in your lab and area, and also focuses the fundamental concepts of the security, right, of those devices. And then when you look at cybersecurity, we focus on a broad different set of different things that happen. We focus on security, but we definitely need to have some type of background of IT before we can jump into that kind of stuff. When it comes from cyber intel, like Jordan mentioned, or even getting into pen testing, for instance, as well too. We have to learn, the attack, and we also have to learn the defense side of both of those areas and how we can do better to protect the networks out there. So to help out, the people who are doing their job functionally in the IT world.
Yeah, that's exactly. I think both of you made excellent points in that situation, because you really do have to have your foundations in order to understand in IT, in order to branch out into cybersecurity. So I think you've definitely brought that point home, because if you don't understand how the network functions, then you really can't protect the data that's flowing through it. So yes, there's definitely a fundamental difference, but they do merge at some point as well. So.
Good. So we've defined a little more what we mean by cyber compared to IT. I do want to dig a little deeper into the journey. I know Jordan mentioned his uncle was somebody who encouraged him, and we were just curious for the rest of you. Did anybody in particular either encourage you or discourage you from taking this particular pathway?
I think for me, my teacher in high school was the big one that really pushed me. The first thing he did was drop a backtrack CD and a backtrack cookbook and said, here, start learning more about cyber in the InfoSec field and start breaking into these systems and seeing what you can do with the book. And so I think for him to be a key inspiration, I was really interested in getting security, but that was the one that really hit me. And then also another person that really inspired me as well too to get down this field was actually my grandfather as well too, was a big person inspire me to get into it, because he actually did a lot of stuff in IT and coding back in the 1980s and 1990s as well too, and getting to read some of his code and some of his work as well too, with the stuff that he did, really also inspired me to get more into this field.
And it's funny, I think I have the same experience as the two of you, where it was a relative of mine that actually was already in the cybersecurity field and had then, of course, I've been listening to it and talking about it. And even though I understood networking, I was like, oh, okay. And then I was starting to see how it all related, one top the other. And then I became more interested and started playing with tools and taking classes and studying for my Security Plus and whatnot. And then it just snowballed from there. So I think having somebody like Tony, and as Jordan was saying, to inspire you, or just to give you that initial opportunity to really talk about it and understand it, I think that played a major part as well.
Great, thank you. So let's just sort of move on a little bit and think about the work you're doing now. What kind of skills are needed to do the work that you're doing?
Okay, I guess I'll start this. Ironically enough, now, of course, when you speak with Jordan, you speak with Tony, they're in the commercial and the government field, the military, and I'm coming at it from an educational point of view, so which is slightly different. Actually, I continually do my certifications because I think it's important to understand that as an educator, I'm providing this to my students as well. I'm also actually I'm finishing up my master's degree in cybersecurity from University of Maryland, so global campus. So that's been a wonderful experience as well. So I think to continually learn and continually try to enhance your skills is extremely important. And even we were discussing before this right now, I know some people, I think Tony, you said you're working on a class currently right now as we're kind of going through these things. It is with technology, you will never stop learning, and you can't just learn a set of skills and then put them on the shelf and say, now I know everything and I can continually go down this path. No, you need to continually learn. New things are coming out every day. It's just like attacks. New attacks are coming out every day. And these two gentlemen, I'm sure, can verify that as well. It's the same situation. So continually learning and bettering yourself and understanding, and go home and set up your lab, play with things. Don't be scared to break things. Try not to get into too much trouble, but it's always important to play. And it's always important to constantly feed your curiosity, I think. Gentlemen, I'm sure you have much more to add to that.
I guess I'll go next. So currently right now, I'm a pen tester in the private sector, and I also do pen test freelance as well too in the commercial side. And my job definitely changes every day. There's always different new landscapes. There's always new systems being built. And there's different assignments that I need to go out to do these assessments for, whether it's me breaking into a facility or me breaking into a system that's inside the corporate network, that's managing the entire network itself, and other companies that are with it too, or for other projects. It's really fun. For me personally, I enjoy it a lot because it always changes. You are always busy. You're always doing something, and you're always learning something new, whether you're on the job or even taking the time to research and to learn from everybody else that's in the InfoSec community itself. It's just amazing. So that's really what I try to do, at least, in my area and with my day-to-day operations as a pen tester then. And on the end, when I'm doing research as well, too, just like Kim says, I even have my own home lab. I have my own little server that I have set up with all my different systems, different tools that I know that incident responders would have, or the defenders would have set up as well too. So I would test my tools against them. And if there's any way I need to be able to find a way to bypass or evade their tools, I can write stuff up for that and be able to do that, and then be able to apply that out for assessment I'm doing, and then teach them how they can prevent what I just did. Because attackers, they always change their stuff on the fly. They always find code that they'll use and try to reproduce it or modify it for their ways to get the advantage or initial access into those systems or networks that we see down the line.
Yes.
Yeah, and for myself, my current position on the civilian side, so outside of Navy stuff that we mentioned earlier, I do a lot of engineering for a data analytics platform for security related data from different cyber tools, network information, things like that. So I definitely agree with what the other two said as far as you never stop learning. If there were some specific things I could point out for anyone who wanted to get started as far as base skills that are required, at least for myself, Linux skills, very important. Yeah. Maybe some high level programming. I know Python's always a good starting point. Networking basics, anything like that. But you definitely never stop learning. So it would just be a starting point.
Yeah, Jordan and Tony, someone has asked a question about the home lab, and you guys are touching on some of the things you need to have. The person is asking, what would you suggest that they begin with for their home lab, hands-on pen testing, cyber lab?
That's a really good question. That really depends on you, and the area that you're in. Also, what is your budget like as well too? There's a lot of factors that come into play when you want to build your own lab. And there's a lot of free resources, free operating systems as well too, that you can help be able to build your lab out to where you want to spec it. Now, the other thing too is that when you're building out this environment, be prepared that you're also going to probably have to expand it on certain things, or maybe a system that you have. But there's definitely a lot of ways and a lot of guides as well too that are out there that you can do that, in places as well too. At least that I think. I actually have a guide that I finished writing. It's actually up. I could definitely share that later for everybody if they want to check it out.
Yeah, yes, Tony has excellent guides. So I was going to say, if you'd share that out, I think everybody would be very beneficial to everybody. Thank you.
So if you want to send it to me, Tony, I'll send it out. And if anyone wants a copy, they can just email me at css@umgc.edu.
Cool. I'm sorry, Jordan, go ahead. We didn't mean to.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, I was just going to say, I definitely agree with what Tony was saying. I see the question in chat also, someone asking about versions of Linux.
Yes.
Red Hat listed. There's also a free version of Red Hat called CentOS. They're popular ones, Ubuntu. You can look into those. But also, as far as an actual setup goes, for basic Linux skills and Python programming and things like that, that could be done on most anything really. The resource requirements aren't that high for things like that. You can actually do it on like a Raspberry Pi, a little like $50 single board computer. So
yeah,
we're getting started in things. The requirements aren't that high.
And I think even just I'm gonna add to what both of you said as well. And I think just even having virtual machines set up, I don't know how comfortable people are, but sometimes you might be running a Windows box. You don't want to convert to a completely Unix box. So maybe if you can just run a VM, then you're right. And you can try out different flavors of Unix as well. You can do it in Ubuntu. You can do a RHEL or a CentOS or whatever you guys want to play with. So, and same thing. And I think I haven't played with Parrot OS yet, but that's supposed to be the latest thing with Kali. I mean, Kali's always been the traditional one to use. So yeah, I mean, think about VMs as well. And I mean, you can use VMware, you can use VirtualBox, whatever, you can download them and play with them, guys, because that way you can just set up, get that iOS and that ISO and not an iOS, I'm thinking of Apple, but an ISO and use them, play with them. Yeah, definitely. These guys do it, right?
So if any people here are very new to cybersecurity, a lot of those terms might not be familiar, but that's okay, because there are lots and lots of free resources and other excellent paid resources online to get you started. And, some suggestions here were maybe learn a bit of Linux, learn a little bit about networking. You can look some of that up and maybe learn a little bit of coding skills, maybe in a language like Python, just to get a foundation before you start to go build a home lab and do some other very advanced things that'll take you a little deeper into the field. So depending on where you are in the process, there's certainly a lot of skills, but always learning is a skill. To be able to learn new things and retain it, always be ready to change and play and experiment. Those seem to be kind of key elements that all of you were pointing out. We'd love to hear about an interesting project that you've taken part in that maybe people could see the scope of what kind of things you might be involved in. So anybody want to start?
Jordan or Tony, would you like to take that one on? You probably have cooler stuff than I do.
Custom projects.
that you can talk about?
I've been thinking there's so many I'm doing right now. I think one of the big projects that I'm starting to work on is understanding more about PowerShell. And the reason why that I'm learning more about PowerShell is because PowerShell is starting to move more into the Linux operating system itself. It's actually starting to be more open source. It's starting to be used a lot more for system administrators. And as a pen tester, a lot of the security features that are currently on PowerShell for Windows are actually not there. So there are ways that I found typical bypasses. Also, there's a couple vulnerabilities on there that I hope to be sharing out soon to the public in the future. But it's really cool to see how PowerShell can be used in such a big, as a language itself can be used in such a big atmosphere, not just on Windows systems now, but moving more into the Linux environments itself. So that's one of the big projects that I've been focusing on a lot in my spare time and as work.
Jordan?
I'll go. Yep. So in my previous position, very similar to the one I have now, is security related data analytics. We had we were a software engineering team, really. So we had a system for, I guess, essentially like keeping track of files that users send to each other, I guess is a abbreviated way of saying it. Scanning for anything malicious, basically looking for inside threat type things. So we set up a data analytics platform for that. Well, I did. I guess I was our only data analytics engineer. But so to track certain things, as far as half the challenge with those kind of things is making correlations between when something happened, how it happened, so on. So we set up a whole data analytics platform for that, as far as keeping track of which files were identified as bad and who sent them and who to yell at for it and all that good stuff. So that's one I can share.
Sounds like detective work.
It is a little bit. Yeah.
Do you often work in a team or do you work alone on projects?
It depends. It depends how far along. I've been on a couple different projects, and one of them I worked on a bigger team, and then the other two, they were sort of just getting started in setting up any kind of data analytics for their system. So I'm kind of the only person, or one of maybe two or three.
Tony, what about you?
As for me, if I'm on an assessment or engagement, usually we'll have 2 to 3 people do the assessment. It's always good to have a second person or a third person on hand as well too, just to give you a different opinion on things when we're identifying issues that need to be fixed for a client. But for doing research wise, it's usually just on our own time for what we do, which is really nice. But also it's really great to bring some of your team members together, or other teams that you've seen as well too. Maybe they can give you another idea, or an inside look of what they're doing, maybe that matches with the work and research that you're doing as well. So it's really, my work is really open with a lot of things with my team members, which has been great.
We're definitely getting questions about the home lab. That was a hot topic idea. The idea that you'd set up your own playground to try things out. I just noticed it said, should I be concerned with any legalities in terms of the do's and do nots with the home lab? Seems interesting. What do you think?
Just don't reach out to anything that's not yours. That's the way to answer that.
Yeah, Jordan has a very good point. And I'll just say that I always encourage my students and fellow professionals to do not try to go ahead and hack the FBI and the NSA and DOD and all. 20 years ago, it might have been really cool to do that. And, I think we see the difference between reality and like TV land. And it looks really cool, but it will get you in a lot of trouble. And it will also prevent you from getting a possible clearance, which I think is something that is really important if you want to be in this field. And I think the two gentlemen here will definitely tell you that as well. If you are caught breaking in and stealing information, or even just going in there just to take a look at things that are not yours. And it doesn't even have to be at big agencies like that. It can be just a regular commercial business. That is considered either stealing, or there's other laws on the books now that you will be subject to at this point. So please be careful. I know there's a story that another instructor, a fellow instructor of mine, will tell you that he had a high school student several years ago who was across the street, and as he looked out the window, these men in big black SUVs and all pulled up, and they had the lights and the sirens, and they went into his house, and he was involved in a certain group called Anonymous, and they tracked him down, even though he was the low man on the totem pole. But he's the one that got into trouble for it. And they confiscated all of his machines and all the machines of his family and his parents and anybody else. So there are some real consequences to it. So just be careful what you do. And even if you think it's okay to hack outside the country, just remember they're looking at you too. So it's not exactly a good thing to do either. So that's my 2 cents on that matter. Perhaps these gentlemen have more to add. So
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
guess, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna add really short. One thing I've heard a lot of people say before is, they'll mention something specific and they're like, oh, is it illegal if I this or that? If it's anything that you think might not be the right thing to do, just don't do it. Anything illegal or anything that you think could possibly be illegal, anything like that could come back to haunt you, especially when clearances are in the conversation. So
yeah. Tony, what were you going to say?
The thing I wanted to mention is that the home lab is supposed to be a playground, an area for you to be able to practice and build your skills. And one of the big things you need to know is, the insides of how that system works and how everything is built in your lab. And anything that you are hitting outside of your lab or touching outside of your lab could be a do not thing to do. So make sure you know what you are doing, and also make sure that everything that you're doing is inside your home lab or area of network as well.
Good points.
Lois, I feel like you have things to add to this one too. You have many words of wisdom, I know.
Well, I was just thinking, I think it's been said about, I think Jordan said, if it smells illegal, don't do it. That's pretty much it. Even, illegal downloads of music and things like that. You just have to stay away from all of that. And one of the things that keeps coming up that I hear about is, your social media pages and tweets and things like that can also come back and haunt you with not only for your clearance, but with employers. Employers are looking at the social media pages of prospective employees, and that can come back and haunt you if you're posting inappropriate things.
There, I put a summary in the chat.
Very clear background.
There was a question, there's a couple of questions about getting into the field and probably your grades and high school. So I'm just going to combine things. My question is are high schools doing enough to bring folks into the field? And someone was asking a question about GPA and how important is that in getting into the field and getting a job?
Well, I'll just tell you this, and I'm not sure. I mean, I'm the teacher, and since I teach at both high school and college, I mean, your GPA obviously is going to affect the college you want to get into, because, colleges look at your GPA and all. As far as the field is concerned, if you were going in and you were interviewing in the field, because I always try to think about what do my students need once they leave me, because the idea is then that they are moving on to whatever, whatever field they decided to get into. I think that having that experience, and this is going to be a catch-22, because it's like, how do I get the experience if I can't work? It's sort of this, and many students have this issue. And I think maybe Tony and Jordan can talk about this too. But I think it's not even necessarily the commercial experience that, well, I worked as a security analyst at whatever company. I think it has to do with the home lab, or at least I know in interview processes, when you speak with an interviewer, they want to know your passion. They want to know what you're interested in. It means more to them, I think, at certain levels, especially when you're starting out. If you say, I have a home lab, or, hey, I play with this, I tinker with this, they want somebody that's going to have the passion and the drive, and somebody that has the interest, because they can take you and then mold you and then give you the path to move forward in their particular organization, whereas that concerns education or the credentials or whatever you need. So I think definitely having that passion, that drive, and expressing that in the interview. The home lab means a tremendous amount to people. And I know we've had a lot of questions about that as well. As far as your GPA is concerned, I mean, I've had students that are high flyers and students that aren't so high, but I don't think a GPA necessarily gives your complete intelligence either. I mean, as an educator, that's kind of hard to say because you want everybody to do well. But I think as long as you are passionate about what you have, you do the best you can with your work. You're giving them a home lab. You're giving them this experience that you're working on. And even you can volunteer. Yes, I work this, I do that, set things up, work on things. And at least that's from the ground level up. Now, I'm sure Jordan and Tony can probably give you a little bit more information about that, but that's at least the experience I've had.
Yeah.
I agree. My side is that, I started like as an extracurricular activity, and that was one of the big things for me was not many my high school did not teach it. Unfortunately, the Career and Technology Center that I went to did, they had those courses. And the other thing too is that those courses prepared you to get your certifications. Now, is that like that everywhere else? And not necessarily, and that's something I think really needs to be built more, for high school curriculums, to have some type of cybersecurity fundamentals or even some security awareness fundamentals as well too, because there's so much that we do digitally and online right now that I don't think a lot of people are really aware about the risks, that they can cause if they don't have something set properly, they don't have something enabled, for the extra layer of protection that's given, those are some of the big things I think really need to be talked about. And hopefully maybe they'll get pushed in the future as well too, for high schoolers, I think, at least.
Quick question about high school. There's always a lot of discussion about diversifying the field, and a lot of people say that some women stay away from it, and others stay away from it because of the math requirements of becoming a probably more computer scientist than just an IT or a cyber person. Did you guys have to really, do you consider yourselves math wizards, and that's how you were able to get into the field so easily?
So
no, not for me personally.
Yeah.
No.
Math either.
No.
I think for me personally, just having fundamentals of programming, and then also learning how to learn how the internet works and how you can convert your IP addresses and do subnetting. I think those were really the big things that I really needed math-wise for it. But everything else, no, it was pretty much, I think, straightforward, at least to learn it.
Exactly. And even in the cybersecurity classes that we all teach or that we're involved in, math isn't a major concept. It's really, do you understand what's going on? I mean, now subnetting, yeah, that's a whole separate ball of wax and bear, and that's fun, as Tony was saying. And that's probably the most math intense thing. Now, we do talk about algorithms and things. If you're going to like cryptology or something, that there is a lot of heavy math. So I do have people though that are interested in that, and I think that's great. And I'm like, that's what we need. We need people that want to work on those things. But as a whole, I mean, cybersecurity has so many different opportunities. I mean, you've got pen testing, you've got forensics, you've got risk management, you've got, assurance, you've got all these different areas that I don't think math should be something that should prevent somebody from getting into IT. And I think traditionally computer science has always been based in more heavy programming, which then everybody associates with a lot of math. But I also am going to say that there too, I don't think you need heavy math, discrete mathematics in order to learn a programming language either. So I don't want that to deter anybody either. I think it's something that you have to enjoy and like and say, this is really kind of cool. Hey, look what I just did. I can manipulate this little character and now I can make it do this, or, I can come up with some kind of, date, time, whatever. And so, I don't think math should prevent anybody from entering into IT or CS right now. So.
I didn't even have to pay Kimberly to say that because
No, you didn't.
to debunk that theory that you needed math to get be a math wizard to get into the field. And Diane, you know that we hear that a lot in the computer science arena, and I think we really do need to let folks know that it's such a wide field and career and so many career opportunities that you may need it for something, but it's not something that should stop you from getting into the field.
Exactly. Yes.
Diane, did you have questions you want to get back to?
I do. I just didn't want to stop that flow there. It was really nice. I think one of the things we just wanted to touch into looking backwards was sort of what was your first opportunity in cybersecurity? I know, already Tony mentioned having that club experience in school was really valuable, but then what was your first actual job opportunity that you kind of broke into having a career?
My first job opportunity was actually working as a cyber systems engineer. And the way that I was actually picked out was I was actually picked out at a cyber competition when I was competing for the Padawans, actually. And one of the vice presidents actually compete. And they were like really interested. And they wanted me to go ahead and go through a panel of cybersecurity managers that they had for the company. And so I went down to McLean. I met with 5 of the managers there. 4 of the 5 managers actually really liked me, my experience. They questioned me a lot about the stuff I'm learning outside and also what I'm doing, extracurricular wise as well too, and how I have a passion for it. And I answered all the questions I thought I did my best in. And then I think 5-6 days later, I got an email saying I got an offer. So I think without me competing, as a Padawan and helping run the team during my time when I was there, I don't think I would have ever gotten the ability to actually work at the place I wanted to in the private sector because I really do enjoy it.
Tony, can you talk a little bit more about the Padawans, the award-winning Padawans, I should say, and the what a capture the flag activity is? I had a question in the chat.
Absolutely. So the Cybersecurity Padawans is a cyber team that actually goes out and competes in these capture the flag competitions. And each of these competitions, we go through a sort of challenges depending on the type of competition. And they're based off of stuff that we would see in the cybersecurity field, at least. So each of these challenges that we go through have a question that we need to look at or a file we need to look at. And in those files contain a flag, and those flags are the points. So each flag that we submit in, we get a total number of points for what it is. And I know for sure being part of the Padawans and seeing what it's like to compete with other people and work together as a team with all the different amount of experiences that we have, we've won a lot of competitions throughout the years, especially. And it's been a lot of fun. And I still try to help out where I can with the Padawans at least.
Yes, and Tony actually also works on the Frederick Community College team as well when he was there, right, Tony?
I still do, yes.
Yep, you still do that as well. And I work with Cyber Patriot and with at the high school level. And just continuing on to what he was saying, one of the things people ask about is what experience do I need to get into this field? That is a fantastic way to get involved in the cybersecurity field, is to participate in CTFs. You don't have to do it through some kind of, one organization. I know there's PICO CTF, there's the National Cyber League, as Tony will probably also mention as well. But these are the kinds of things that get you involved and will get you, obviously for Tony, it was able to help him get a job, because what do people notice him? It's kind of like sports where, if you go to a football game and you got all the recruiters looking for all the best football players. Well, it's the same thing, guys, geeks rule. And now they want to come and see us. Okay. They want to come and see what we've got. All right. So there you go. So this is just another way to get the exposure that you need. Be on forums, be involved in things, get into the social media aspect, get a LinkedIn. LinkedIn is fabulous. That's another good way to get involved in things and meet people, and see different people. So, oh, wow. Okay. I'll see if anybody, do you want me to?
Well, let's finish up. Jordan, how did you get your first steps? And do you feel the same way about the competitions? Definitely one of the first places to go, or what do you think?
So this sound great. I never took place in those, but I think my first real cyber experience is with the Navy.
Wow.
CTN with them, so it's Cryptologic Technician Networks. It's basically the cyber role for us enlisted folks. So yeah, I went through. They have like a 6-month or so training pipeline, and that was the first real experience I got. And then when I came back from that and went into a part-time status with the Navy, I also got into a like entry-level systems engineering role with a government contracting company.
So if you get started in the military, how do you know that that's one of the choices? How did you know to pick that it would be something that you would like?
So I had already been in college for about 3 years. By the time I decided to join the Navy. As far as like what roles are available, research, definitely do lots of research. I think military is a great option for anyone who wants to consider it, but definitely research and make sure that you're getting into a position that's interesting to you.
Cool.
We want to try to field that question in the chat.
Yeah, well, we have a question in the chat that's very interesting about how do you get a 10-year-old interested in cybersecurity? And just let me add on another question that was in there about, these robotics camps and things like that are bringing in quite a few students in that age range. Just how do you, is that a way to get them interested in cybersecurity, or is that more engineering? What are your thoughts about bringing 10-year-olds into the cybersecurity field?
Well, I'll have to say, I mean, I have a 10-year-old, so I'll speak to that at least at this point. And the first thing is, I think they have to have a interest in computers, and so that's I think a given. Where or some type of technology, even if it's video games, because I feel like every 10-year-old plays video games at this point, at least in my house. But also, I think exposing them is a great to take them to like local cyber conventions like B-Sides or some of the other local conventions or regional conventions. I go there every year. I go to B-Sides Charm, B-Sides DC, B-Sides Nova. I'm sure Tony and probably Jordan have been to those. I know Tony has. And taking the kids there, they have like a kids area, like a kids village. And you can bring your child there and they're going to get to play with different things, activities that are for their age range, but it's exposing them to cybersecurity. It's almost like a cyber camp that they get to play with. It's really kind of cool. I think it's B-Sides DC that did that. And maybe B-Sides Charm, I can't remember. But they want kids to get involved at that age, and exposing them and taking them there. I mean, they may not particularly appreciate the talk on Splunk or whatever, or whatever the latest thing is. They'll be bored, but there are areas there for kids, and I think that that's really what we need to get them to be involved in, because they need to see the big picture. They're just like, I mean, adults get interested in things when they see videos, they see movies, it's like a field trip. You need to take them places and let them see things and get engaged. I'm a firm believer of that. And I know it's like, you can't really take your 10-year-old to a data center and be like, look at all these cool blinky lights. I get that. Okay, guys, like, it's besides the security clearance concerns, there's other things as well. But, take them, like, that is, I think, one of the coolest things, to take them to that, like the B-Sides convention and the local security conferences, because they will get an opportunity to see so much. They'll get a t-shirt, they'll get to go back and tell their friends how cool it was. They'll get a lanyard, and I think just having them feel like they're part of that community is something that really means a lot to kids, especially at that age. So what do you guys think?
My oldest is 6 years old, so I haven't quite been able to get him too interested in it yet. But but yeah, no, that probably definitely, as you mentioned, some sort of convention or something like that space for kids would probably be the best shot.
Well, looking at we talked about how this is something you have to keep on learning and it's always changing. So one of the things we wanted to ask you is, are there things that you'd still like to learn? I know, Tony, you said that you were digging more into the PowerShell, as that was sort of your current project, was to learn more in that area. Are there other things that you wish you knew already, or that you're in the process of learning or think would be good to learn right now?
I think I would actually like to understand more about Windows, the operating system itself. I know that's funny for me to say, but Windows itself is not just a normal operating system that we use to run programs and tasks on. There's a lot of different things of how the operating system is built that we really don't know yet. And there's a lot of different techniques that are out there still that Microsoft has put in on that system itself, but people have started to use security ways to bypass it or to use old stuff that they have. So I think that's one thing. Learning more about Windows and the security side of it is a big thing. And I think I'll talk about one of the current big things that everybody's talking about is cloud, right? Cloud environments, everybody's getting the cloud technology, right? You see people moving their environments into Azure, into AWS, what else you want to say? Rackspace, DigitalOcean. There's so many different cloud environments. But no one talks about the security of those things. So that's another thing I'm starting to do a little bit more research on and trying to get a better understanding of how people set up their environments and see what ways can we escalate their privileges on those environments. Those are really just the big current projects that I'm kind of working on the side other than PowerShell. But.
Yeah, I think for myself, a lot like Tony mentioned, cloud technologies, and I think another one that I've been looking into lately is containerization technologies, which kind of ties into cloud a lot. It's how a lot of cloud applications are deployed and kind of sandboxed. But yeah, there's always something else too. The data analytics platform that I use a lot currently is called Elastic. It's open source. Anyone can go out and play with it. But there's also another one that I'm probably gonna have to get spun up on soon, Splunk, which we already mentioned also. So it's always something.
I'm with you guys. Actually, I'm going to piggyback on both of them because I'm actually working on a research project with a Red Hat employee on the security of containers. And of course, they use, we've been talking about, I've been bringing it into my high school classes, which I know it's not really truly part of the curriculum, but I think this is what we're talking about in cybersecurity education is that, you know, even though it may not be written down as part of the curriculum, it's something we need to talk about because you're going to hear about it. You're going to hear about it when you leave. And I think containerization is exactly, we talk about it in Linux, we're going to talk about it in cyber, you know, we talk about it in networking. So yes, I have to agree. I think it's the coolest thing. It's very abstract. And I think you need to be I don't know. That's one of those things I think that would be, if we could translate that into a children's book, as Dr. Palin, there we go. We'll have us translate that into a children's book. It would be fabulous. Because that is a difficult concept there. So, but yes, the cloud and the security of the cloud, definitely that is the way things are going, virtualization and cloud. So.
And somebody did ask about the platform, you know, should you specialize in Windows, Macs, Linux, what, you know, to really get into the field, what do you think?
All three.
Yeah.
Good. Have a good fundamental understanding of all three. And, you know, it doesn't matter really which one you use, as long as you can be able to do the job in it and you're comfortable with using that type of operating system in the environment you're in. I don't think you really will have a problem with the stuff you're going to be moving forward with, but it's really good to have a good fundamental understanding of using all three. And Linux has a variety of different distributions that are out there. You know, there's going to be a different set of commands that you'll be using in different ones. But as long as you have the fundamentals down, I think for those, I think it's pretty straightforward of how you want to use them and pick out the different distro you want to use as well too moving forward.
Yes, and depending upon what's the purpose of it, right? So like if you're going to use it for, you know, hacking, I mean, or well, I wouldn't say hacking even, but just looking through things, maybe you want the tools on Kali or Parrot OS, but if you want to use something else, maybe you want to use Ubuntu, I don't know. So, but yeah, I agree with Tony. I think having a fundamental understanding of all three, because you're going to run into all kinds of systems, Windows, you know, server, Linux, Mac. I mean, Mac is not impervious, much to people's, much to mythology there. It is not impervious. They do get attacks too. So yes. So.
Yeah, I use probably 90% or more Linux and still wish I knew more Windows. So never hurts to have a baseline knowledge in all of them.
Exactly.
Diane, I don't want to derail your questions, but somebody put a question in about certifications, and I was asking about CISSP, and I got my CISSP, but I got that not to be a, you know, a technical type person in the cybersecurity arena. I got that more as someone who would be at a higher level and, you know, thinking about not only the technical side of cybersecurity, but also the management policy side. But what do you guys think about certifications in general? Are they necessary for employment along with your academic background? And what do you think about the cloud computing certification? That is one thing with the CISSP that I am thinking about sitting for, the cloud computing, because it's like you've been saying, it's an up and coming field. So what are your thoughts about that?
Do you want me to start? Tony, go ahead. You can go ahead and start if you want.
So I have a very, I'm very against certifications, and then
Fair enough.
This is a I know. This is a different opinion that you're going to be getting. But the reason,
yeah, because I'll do something different.
the reason why I say that is because there are so many certifications out there in cybersecurity itself. Like there's, I think maybe over 200, as I saw last night, of different certifications for different vendors for different uses for what you want to be in the field and area. And I feel like it's insane. I mean, currently myself, I hold over 20 certifications right now. And just trying to remember which ones to renew for my job, that for my current roles, is just a pain in the butt. And then, you know, the pricing wise as well too for renewal and keeping them up to date as well too. It's also a pain as well too, that I'm really am not a fan of. That's just me personally. And the other thing too is that a lot of people that usually get the certifications will usually just try to go for the pass. They usually will try to memorize everything. They will not take the time to understand, you know, what they need to focus on in the content or the fundamentals to pass, right? And I've gotten that before with candidates that I've interviewed, where I will test them, you know, on pen testing wise. Like, just because you have a certification in the pen testing area doesn't mean I know what you really do. So in our interviews, we will actually do a mock assessment. So they'll go ahead and actually try to pen test, and if they can present to us what they actually got into, then they can show it. And clearly we've seen with a lot of people that do get the certification, they really don't have the skills or experience to actually apply that practically. And that's the one thing that I kind of want to push and emphasize on more. So if you're looking for a gold standard in any certification, there really isn't any. There really is not in this field, because it really depends on what you want to do and what area you want to work in. That is the certification that you're going to need to at least do your job, right? So that's the big thing. So everybody looks at the offensive security certified professional in the pen testing area as the gold standard certification. You know, it's a certification to have, because that certification, you apply practical knowledge, you apply practical skills to it, and it's an actual pain. It's a grueling exam too, being in an area for 24 hours where you don't have any multiple choice at all. While some certifications that are out here in the field, you know, they are multiple choice, everybody gets the same standard question, and you pretty much can find dumps that are online that people use to actually go through the exam and pass. So it's kind of tough, and hopefully maybe in the future some of these certifications will change to be more practical, or to offer better incentives to, you know, the people who have passed fairly as well too, and actually know what they're talking about. And hopefully that's something I would like to see change. That's the big thing I think in the certification field, just in general.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. From what I've seen, a lot of times what will happen is, you know, someone gets a position within a certain organization and they have a requirement that their employees meet a certain baseline, a certification, and that's why people get it. I'm sure they could be really useful as like a learning tool. But it seems more often, you know, they're sort of just pursued out of requirement, or as far as like a you know, gold standard, what kind of like what Tony mentioned as far as interviewing and things like that go. What ends up being more important a lot of times is like practical skills or knowledge that you can present in an interview, more so than any specific certification.
And I'm going to piggyback on both of them as well, and just say that typically the way it's always been presented to me, because they're both very accurate points, is that the certification will get you the interview, but what you actually know will actually get you the job. And so I think, you know, realizing that if you go out and you get that certification, then you better know what you're talking about, because they are going to ask you about that in the interview. So don't think that you're just going to have it and then walk away and say, I'm this great, you know, great cyber person or networking person. You actually have to know what you're talking about when it comes to the interview. But typically, at least since we're talking about how do I get into the field, I will tell you, and gentlemen, if you disagree with me, please tell me this. I think maybe starting off like an A+ to kind of get a base foundation. Net Plus is kind of nice. And I know I'm pushing CompTIA, but I'm just saying Net Plus is nice because that gives you a general agnostic networking baseline. And then the Security Plus is what I'm hearing is still the standard as far as the base security certification. Those tend to, and they stack on each other, and I don't work for CompTIA, so I'm not saying that. I know, but I do agree with Tony. There are a ton of certifications out there. And I think if you walk in with hopefully some of the base certifications and say, I'm here, mold me, they will then say, you know what, we want you to go in this direction or this direction, and they will sponsor you. And because those certifications can be very costly. So that's at least my experience with that. And I think having additional certifications, just, as long as you get them and as long as you know what you're talking about, then I think you're in good shape, but that's on you. So.
Yeah, I think Kimberly's point about the certification getting you in the door is a very important one, because all things being equal, as a manager, if I have, 5 resumes for one job, I need to sort through those jobs in some kind of way. And if most of them are fairly equal with education background and experience, and then somebody has a certification, that might push that resume up to the top. So, but then she's also right that once you get that interview, you need to know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. So we are pretty much at the end of our time, but I don't want to ignore the last question there. I know we have to do our little wrap up here. But somebody said, do you have the same opinions regarding privacy certifications?
Okay, privacy certifications. What are we? I'm just going to ask the question in terms of because I'm not sure how to address that. Privacy certifications.
Be more policy.
Oh, IAAHP certification. I'm not as familiar with that. Does anybody else have a?
Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with that or any of the certification standards that they have.
No, I apologize, but I don't either.
Like they said, 200 of them.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Maybe get an assortment of some base level ones and hang on to those. So thank you all very much. Lois, did you want to say any words in closing before I read our official goodbye?
No, I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that if they had any questions that we need to answer, they can just send an email to cess@umgc.edu and we'll get them answered for you.
And was somebody going to paste that registration link? It said we're going to post the registration link if people are.
I will do that. I will do that.
So we just wanted you to know that this year's efforts to encourage all Americans to take some proactive steps to enable lasting positive cybersecurity behavior changes at home and at work. And we hope we've given you insight into protecting against cyber threats and served as a constant reminder of the need to promote cybersecurity awareness across the nation as a shared responsibility of the entire American community. So sign up to enjoy more of the UMGC leaders and special cybersecurity industry guests. Some exciting and engaging webinars and fun activities are coming up in the next few weeks. We have a webinar that will provide you with the tools you need to do your part, be cyber smart in today's world. And you can see the link is there. It's umgc.edu/cybersmart for future webinars. We have 2 minutes if there's any last lingering questions that weren't answered.
I just could take those 2 minutes to announce that actually tomorrow evening, we have a really cool webinar on secure coding. And an organization called Secure Code Warriors is going to do a presentation for us. They have a really nice gamification platform for secure coding. They are going to actually give us, all of the participants, a sign on to their platform so that we can play the capture the flag type games regarding software development. And they're going to let us keep those sign-ons until the end of the year to play with. So
cool.
Please feel free to sign up at our website for tomorrow's webinar with Secure Code Warriors.
Any recommendations what kind of background somebody should have to be able to participate in that?
That's a good question, but actually I participated and I didn't have a lot of background. So I think it is designed for beginner types who are interested in secure coding.
Cool.
And advanced.
Well, fearless leader, you want to say the final
No, I just want to thank you all. The time went really fast. I felt like I wanted to talk some more about this. One of the things that we did, we talked a lot about the technical side of cybersecurity, and I think we need to do another one that kind of hones in on the cybersecurity management and policy side of getting into careers in that arena. So we'll schedule that.
Yep.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.